Hello. I am holding a cup of tea that says, fun fact, I'm not wearing pants. I am wearing pants, and I'm probably not going to drink the tea while I am filming because I can't edit out the drinking, because I can't edit anything. It's warm, which is nice. That's the point. So, anyway, I want to talk about villains and the way that we are struggling to communicate about villains. And I had a whole video ready to go for today that was nothing to do with this, but villains are having kind of a pop culture moment. So I thought, why not be like timely for a change? I never get to be timely. Not never. I very rarely get to be timely. Um Also, please excuse, I am definitely going to be like scratching and rubbing at my shoulder. I keep you can literally see it's not even. This keeps popping out of socket at the minute. Because sometimes that happens to me. And it's causing a like localized allergic reaction to the fact that I'm in a lot of pain. So I apologize if that's annoying or distracting, or if I have therefore made it annoying or distracting by drawing attention to it. The shoulder is my villain. Anyway, the point is that we're having this pop culture moment about villains. Largely, partially, somewhat to do with, and the reason that like it's come to my attention is that I've been watching. I was being really cagey in the previous version of this video, but do you know what? I'm just gonna stop it. Say it. I've been watching Hazbin Hotel. I like it. I know it's a polarizing series. I enjoy it. Does it have flaws? Yes. So does everything else. So in Hazbin Hotel season 2, which is coming out in a minute, there's a character called Lute. Lute has just had a super epic song about revenge, basically. I am not trying to pretend I am up to date with Hazbin Hotel. I haven't heard the song. I've just seen people's reactions to it thus far, and people really, really like the song. Great, cool. That must feel great if you're the person who wrote the song or performed the song or was involved behind the song. Must feel really nice. But the thing that got me thinking about this whole conversation, about this, like the thing in this that got me thinking about the whole conversation, is that a lot of people's responses and reactions to this song have been questions about whether they are allowed to like side with or root for or like want Lute to win, right? Because of the song. And the answer to those questions is you're asking the wrong question. You're miscommunicating with yourself and with others what this song is making you feel. And I feel like such an asshole when I say shit like that. But please stick with me, bear with me, and listen to what I have to say, because what I think is happening here is, of all things, the same thing that happened with Let It Go from Frozen. I know, it's a weird comparison. While they are both animated and musical, there are very few similarities between Frozen, by Disney for kids, and Hazbin Hotel, by a conglomerate of people, but Vivian Madrano, for adults, right? Those are two very different things. And that is true. And in Frozen, before Frozen came out, when they were still in the discussion stages and they were composing songs and changing the story and doing this, that, and the other things with it, before it came out, they had this whole plan that Elsa was going to be like the traditional Snow Queen and she was going to be the villain. Cool, fun, whatever. Obviously, that didn't happen. What happened was they wrote Let It Go. The screenwritery people really liked Let It Go, and they decided that Let It Go couldn't belong to a villain. Now, I don't think they were wrong for making this choice, necessarily. I think, like, especially with it being a kid's piece of media, you do have to be more, like, careful what you're doing with that. Why do I not write kids' media? You do have to be more careful what you're doing with kids' media, because you are always imparting a moral lesson to kids. Because kids don't have that much world experience yet. So you have to be aware of the fact that this could be a child's first introduction to what you're talking about. And it's really difficult to get that right and do that well, which is, again, why I do not do that. So they decided that Let It Go couldn't belong to a villain because it's a real self-actualizing song. It's a real sort of, it's very comparable to an I Want song, but I don't think it's actually an I Want song because she doesn't say she wants anything in it. But it's the like the self-realization kind of song. It's the like, I can be powerful and I can be myself, and like that's a really powerful message for kids, and it shouldn't be for kids associated with a villain. If this was an adult piece of media, you could do what you want. So they had to change the whole story around that because it was too compelling, and the messaging behind it. But because primarily the logic behind it was that it was too compelling of a song. It was going to be their big blockbuster song. They couldn't have that belong to the villain. That's completely fair for a kids' movie. It's also completely fair just as a choice. But that is actually a really important, the way I phrased that is really important. I want you to like think about the way that I phrased it. I'm going to say it again. It was too compelling for a villain. The word compelling is the thing I want you to lift out of there. Because what I think people are trying to communicate about Lute and Lute's song is that the song has like enhanced her characterization and made her very compelling as a character. I am going to do another comparison for you now. The other comparison I'm going to do for you now is Avatar: The Last Airbender. And everybody talks about Avatar: The Last Airbender all the time because it's written very well. I'm going to be honest, that's a big part of why people use it a lot as examples, is because it is written very well. I have not seen the live action ones. I am not going to see the live action ones. I like the animated series and I'm sticking with what I like. Also, it's more fun to compare animated to animated here. So in the original animated series of Avatar: The Last Airbender, when you first meet Zuko, Prince Zuko, you already kind of start, well, rooting for him. You don't want him to capture the Avatar. You know that that would be a bad thing, but he is a very compelling character, so you want him to have good things, right? You root for him in the sense of you want him to achieve his internal goals. You just don't want him to achieve his external goals. So Zuko's internal goals in Avatar: The Last Airbender are to gain back his honor and to feel a sense of not self-pride, that's not right, but to feel whole as a person. Like he feels like he is broken as a person and he wants to feel whole. That's a very common character arc for a lot of different characters. It's especially common in kids media because it is very true for a lot of kids that you don't feel like a real person yet until you grow up to be an adult. And I'm going to be honest, sometimes you still don't feel real. Sometimes you still don't feel whole as an adult. Although sometimes you get some diagnoses and they start explaining things to you. Anyway, the point is that from the very beginning, from the get-go, Zuko is presented as a very compelling and a very sympathetic character. So what I mean by the sympathetic character is that Zuko has this, I mean, he's got kind of a kicked puppy vibe about him. Like he's a wet dog. He's quite sad. You look at him and you feel for him. That's what I mean by sympathetic. Sympathetic means you feel for him. You feel for him. You feel the sadness he feels. You feel the isolation he feels. You feel the incompleteness he feels because of the way that he's presented to the audience. And so you are rooting for him to achieve. And then you remember what he's trying to achieve and you go, no, I don't want that. I just want good things to happen to him. And over the course of the entire 3 seasons of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Zuko faces down the bad things he and his community and his ancestry have done. He seeks forgiveness and he starts the path to redemption. At the end of the series, it is presented as if he has completed the path to redemption, but in my opinion, I think that he is still on that path and that he will live on that path for the rest of his days. I don't think he's ever going to escape that need to continue the path to redemption because of the position that he is in at the end of the series, right? And I think what's happening with the Lute is a very similar situation, again, because she's just had this killer song. She's a very compelling character. You're sympathetic to the fact that she's had this big loss, that she's got this very like strict moral code, that she believes that she's in the right. You're very sympathetic to her. And I think what people actually want is not for Lute to achieve her active and stated goals in the course of the story. I think what people want is for Lute to have what Zuko got. For Lute to be able to face what she has done, see that it was wrong, change her mind, and start on the path to redemption. People want her to be able to be better than she is. And people identify with her. This is another key element. People identify with her because sometimes we do have these really strict pieces of moral code that we're not willing to budge on. Like, and sometimes those can be a positive thing. And sometimes those can be a net negative overall, right? Like, I, as a person, think everybody should be housed and everybody should be fed and everybody should have access to medical care and nobody should be cold and nobody should be, I just said fed, so hungry is a moot point, but and nobody should be isolated by their own doing. And like, I am of the opinion that this is what paying your taxes is for, is to kind of solve those problems. I pay my taxes. And I think that as part of a community, you deserve to be taken care of just as much as you owe it to others to take care of them. And like, that's just my opinion, and I'm not willing to budge on it. It's kind of a net positive. But I also recognize that for some people, it's kind of scary, because it's like, well, if we do that, how do we stop people from taking advantage of things? And there are bad people in the world, or people with bad intentions. So how do we deal with that? And it's like, okay, yeah, those are good questions, but it doesn't change my position. And I think that is one of those moments where Lute speaks to something within us, right? I think that Lute speaks to something within us wherein she's, again, this loss is very, very heavy on her shoulders. She's had to step up into this position of authority because of this loss. And I think that there is definitely this element to it of, when we lose things that we care about deeply, we tend to get mean. That's a really, really common response to a loss, is to get mean, to become very self-focused, and to stick rigidly to whatever connection we might still have with the person that we've just lost, or the thing that we've just lost. And I think that is also speaking to people a lot, because most people have experienced loss at some point, whether that loss is a death, whether that loss is someone moving away, whether that loss is a loss of like a personal freedom, like if you become disabled, whether that loss, whatever that loss happens to be. I think we have all experienced a loss of some kind. So that loss and that grief that she is feeling speaks to us, and we're feeling that feeling with her because she's a very sympathetic character, and we therefore want things for her because she's very compelling. But where people are getting stuck is that they're struggling to extrapolate what it is that they want for Lute. So it's easy to think, I want her to have everything she wants because I like her as a character, I find her compelling, and I identify with her. And I find her sympathetic. And I think that there is this I hope you can hear that. That's the sound of Achilles running around the room in a box. Anyway, I think where people are struggling right now with communicating their feelings about media specifically is that they're struggling with the concept of how to jump from, I identify with this character, I find them compelling, I want things for them, to what do I want for them? And that like introspection and also the media like analysis skill required to be able to pass what you want or what possible route this character could take to get to a place where you and your self-identification with the character carries you to a positive place. You want them to win because you want to feel like you've won and you identify with the character. But what you actually want is you don't want them necessarily to win at their stated goals. You want them to win at becoming a better person. You want them to win at something that will make you, as a person who identifies with this character, feel good, because you watch them as the vehicle of your self-identification do positive things and achieve things that feel good and mirror good feelings back into your self-identification. Caveat: not everybody identifies with characters. That's not a thing that everybody does. I have found out. I am a person who identifies with characters, but apparently not everybody does. That's completely fine. Don't worry about it. The other things are still relevant. You can still find them compelling. You can still find them sympathetic. You can still find them, all of these other things without needing to self-identify. And you can still want good things for them because of those factors without the self-identification part. It's just that that's often an element involved in this whole conversation. So do I have a solution to this? Well, this video was probably hopefully helpful. No, I don't have a solution to this other than potentially when you come across people talking about, I want, for example, Lute to win because of this song, what you can say to people is, yeah, I also find her really compelling. I can't wait to see her redemption arc. And you can give people, without like actively, do you mean you want her? Like, don't do the correction thing. Like, there's a really nice way of like correcting people. And it's not correcting people, but it's sharing another way of communicating by communicating the way that you think they want to communicate, or the thing that you think that they mean, but as your own opinion. And if they agree with you, that's great. And if they disagree with you, that's totally fine. I'm not saying start an argument on the internet. I'm saying, like, I've done the thing before where I've said the wrong word because I'm dyslexic, and sometimes that happens. I mean, everybody does sometimes, but mine is because I'm dyslexic, and that happens quite often. So, like, instead of saying, I don't know, sympathetic, I'll say symbiotic, right? Because those words are very similar. And I'll say, yeah, I find them really symbiotic. And people around me now know, like my friends and family now know, that the best way to respond to that is not by going, did you mean sympathetic? And I'll say, I said sympathetic, because I think I did. But the best way to respond to it is, yes, they are very sympathetic, or you find them sympathetic. I understand. And just providing the word without it sounding like a correction. And I don't know why that works so well. I actually know I do. It's because it's not a conflict. When you yes and someone to give them the thing that you think is a correction, or you go, hey, so I understand, and you like center yourself as the misunderstanding, it sets people more at ease and therefore is less likely to start a conflict. So if your goal is not to start a conflict, because that's often my goal, if your goal is to communicate without starting a conflict, or to clarify without starting a conflict, often, not always, it can be very helpful to center it in a different way. And instead of asking the did you mean, which sounds like you got it wrong to a lot of people, you can say things like, yes, this, or I understand that, or that kind of thing, which could be helpful. I think that we need to use the word compelling a lot more. I find this character compelling should be a more common piece of lexicon, because I think it clarifies a lot more things. Like when you say to someone, oh, I really like this character, like I'm gonna pick, I'm just gonna keep using Disney movies. I'm gonna pick Ursula from The Little Mermaid, right? I really like Ursula from The Little Mermaid. I think a lot of the time when people hear, I really like this character, they hear things like, I self-identify with this character. I want this character to win. And like all of these things that I've just explained about Lute. I want this character to win at their stated goal. And that's not what I'm trying to communicate. What I'm trying to communicate is I find this character interesting. I find this character compelling. I would love to learn more about this character. without needing them to become some kind of tragic hero that turns them into a villain. And we see how they went down this road. I don't need Ursula to be a tragic villain. I don't need Ursula to have a tragic backstory. I'm perfectly content with the idea that Ursula is really like power grubbing. All she really wants in her whole life is to exert power over people and to feel powerful by exerting her power over people. I find that dynamic from her very compelling. It's not what I want for my life. It's not something that I want people to have in real life, or it's not how I want people to behave in real life. But as a fictional character, I find her very interesting, I find her very compelling, and I enjoy watching the shenanigans she gets up to while rooting for her not to succeed. And for a long time, I would have communicated that with, I really like Ursula. But now that that has become commonly understood as something other than what I'm trying to communicate, what I've shifted to saying is, I find this character really compelling. I enjoy watching this character. I can't wait to find out what other misdeeds they get up to. Like, and if I'm going to use Hazbin Hotel again, because I really enjoy watching Valentino in Hazbin Hotel. I find him a truly heinous character. I think he is one of the worst characters worst behaved characters I have ever seen. But every time he is on screen, I am absolutely glued to it. I am so compelled by this character. I just cannot wait to see what other horrible thing he will do next. And I feel really mean when I say stuff like that, because there is this social expectation that when you like a character, it's because you agree with them. And I do not agree with Valentino. I do not agree with Valentino. I just find him interesting. He's like a bug under a microscope. It's interesting. And like, it's it's not that I want him to win. I definitely don't. It's not that even that I think he's gonna go on a path to redemption. I have no idea if he ever will. And like, I don't really care if he does or not, because the point of watching him is that he's entertaining. And I find him very entertaining as a character. If he was a real person behaving like that, I would not be okay with it. But he's not a real person, and he's not hurting real people. So it's kind of fine. And I just find him so compelling. I find him so interesting. I just want to know what he's going to do next. And I know that other people have the same viewpoint. And this is actually really important as well, is that he is a fundamentally different type of character than Lute is, despite the fact that they are both like villains within the series, is that Valentino as a character is doing heinous things and I don't know if he recognizes that what he's doing is heinous or not. Like, I'm not sure. That's another point about him that's very compelling, is that I don't know how much he knows about himself. I don't know how introspective he is. I don't know if he knows that what he's doing is like objectively bad and he just doesn't care, or if he doesn't realize how bad it is. But to be honest, I think it's the former. I think he knows that it's bad and he just doesn't care. He's another character who's just out for power, and I just find that a very compelling dynamic. Whereas with Lute, she's not out for power. She is holding to this moral ground, which is a much more like sympathetic position to be in. Like, she really, truly, honestly believes that she's doing the right thing, even though she's not. And that's what's so compelling about her, and so sympathetic and so self-identifiable about her. And it's why you want to root for her. But you don't have to root for her stated goals. You don't have to agree with her to root for her in a capacity. Whereas I don't think anyone is rooting for Valentino, because he is in a fundamentally different character position to Lute, for example. I hope you found this entertaining. I actually very rarely talk about this kind of thing here at this stage, because mostly I talk about writing. I write books. If you've never been here before, by the way, if this is your first introduction to me, hello. I write sci-fi and fantasy books. Please feel free to check out those or my free weekly short stories over on oppiddles.wordpress.com. Everything that you need, all the links you could possibly need, are in the description box below, right next to the like and subscribe buttons if this has convinced you to stick around and enjoy the show. I will be back in 2 weeks' time with a video about goals, and like I said, I don't often talk about pop culture moments or like analysis of other pieces of media, but if people are interested, I am willing to do that more. I have done it a couple of times. Like I've talked about like how romance novels work and making sure that you don't fuck up a historical novel with accents and like that kind of thing. But you know, let me know if that's something that you'd be more interested in seeing more of, or not. You know, either way, whatever. I'm down to like provide what people are looking for. And I will see you in 2 weeks' time with my goals video, and then in 2 more weeks' time with my final video of the year, which is entitled thus far, Endings Are Hard. Bye.